So spring has sprung and so hasn't the board meeting. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our board president, Ms. Christine Dell.
Hi, good evening. Can you please join me in the pledge of allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're making some slight modifications to the agenda. We're going to start with the report from our student rep. We have Catherine with us tonight, aka actress in the play. So we're going to have her do her update so she can get over to the auditorium as quickly as possible. Catherine.
So good evening, members of the board and the community. So for sports, we have the Unified Ladies Bowling Team on the Section 4 title, and the Boces Girls Swim Team on 5 state titles. And this week's spring sports have just started up. And speaking of big competitors, come see what's on this island tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday. Evening showings will take place from today, the 17th to the 19th at 7 p.m. with an additional matinee performance on Saturday at 2 p.m. And it's Music in Our Schools Month, so the Wind Ensemble performs on March 23rd, the concert band performs March 24th, and the orchestra and choirs perform the 30th. Winter Guard Championships are April 2nd in Shenandoah, and Vanilla Percussion Championships are April 3rd at Untitled Community College. In the senior class, in keeping with our tradition of celebrating the 22nd of every month, this coming Tuesday, March 22nd, seniors will be making the Spring Has Sprung greeting cards to be delivered to local nursing homes and the Meals on Wheels program. As planning for senior prom is well underway, the senior class prom will be Empire State of Mind, and the prom will take place on May 21st at the Arnold Hall Event Center. And the senior class would like to give a special shout out to all the seniors involved on West This Island. In the junior class, we'll be having their prom on April 30th at the Arnold Hall Event Center, and the theme is Night Without the Ready. The freshman class had a very successful fundraiser, and thanks everyone in the community for their support and are starting to plan some fun activities for the spring. And National Honor Society has started to plan their spring service project. Last year's project was creating a kindness rocks garden around the flagpole, and this year's project will be announced soon. And Student Council, this week was March Madness Spirit. Monday was Sprout versus Sprout, Tuesday was Athlete Day, Wednesday was Anything But a Backpack Day, today was St. Patrick's Day, and tomorrow is going to be Grader Day.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, so backing up, we have our minutes from our previous meetings. We have 2.01 and 2.02. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Any comments, questions, or discussion on either of these items? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, so now is the time in our agenda where we open it up for any community members who have any questions or comments. If you would like to speak, I'd ask you to come up to the podium. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. There will be a timer up on the screen, so you kind of keep track of your time. When we get to the 3 minutes, I will ask you to wrap up. So if anybody in the community would like to come forward, please use this app. Okay, thank you. So presentations, we have our presentation 5.01 from the GST Boces District Superintendent, or the District Superintendent of Education.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you Ms. Kelly Howe, our district superintendent from Greater Southern Tier Boces, and also accompanying her, Mrs. Picnic, one of our cheerleaders, one of our students, and just an all-around great student at Boces. So, okay. They should get your presentation like this.
So slides up and then get started. I'm waiting for the picture. So you want to see. It's a little nervous. Okay. Is the mic on? Is this good? Okay. So.
Yes. Sorry.
It's okay. There we go. All right, thank you. So good evening, everyone, and my name is Kelly Hauk, and I'm the district superintendent at the Greater Southern Tier Boces. I started in about August, and it's been a pleasure to be able to return to this region. For those of you who may or may not know a little bit about my past, I spent about the first 17 years of my career as a GST Boces employee in several different capacities. Before leaving the region, I was serving as the Canasarega School Superintendent. And then for the last 8 years, I served as a district superintendent in Wayne Finger Lakes Boces. But it is very true what they say, there's nothing better than coming home. I also am the proud graduate of a career and technical education program from the Cooper's campus just a few years ago. And so again, it's nice to be able to come back and be able to give back to the community and support the region. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking a little bit about GST Boces, our services, what we do, a couple exciting things that we have that are going to be transpiring, and then one of your own is going to share her own experience as a career and technical education student. So if you could slide up to the next slide, thank you. So a little bit about Greater Southern Tier Boces. Our Boces is comprised of 21 component school districts, obviously with Boces being one. And what's unique, it's not necessarily that we have 21 component school districts because there's many Boces across the state. There's 37 Boces across New York State, and several of them have 20 to 25 districts. But what is very unique is the geographical size of our Boces. So we cover about 2,000 square miles. And just to give you a point of reference, it goes really from Waverly, Spencer-Benetton area, all the way to Alfred Allen, Cornell, Canasarega. So it's a pretty significantly large area. When you think about collaboration and sustainability of programs, it's a monumental task, but I'm pleased to say that that's exactly what we accomplish every day with the collaboration of our 21. A little history about Boces in general. Boces was formed in 1948 by the New York State Legislature, and what they were looking to do with the formation of Boces is to really create a vehicle that would allow all school districts across the state to collaborate so that the educational experiences and opportunities were similar across the state, regardless of where your zip code was, regardless of where you called home. Boces was intended to be the vehicle to level the playing field, so to speak. And a great way to think about it is, for example, like our career and tech ed programs, it would not be sustainable, let alone the quality couldn't necessarily be intact if you had 21 different culinary art programs across 2,000 square miles. So that was really the intent. And they were very wise when they created the vehicle for collaboration because they also made sure that it also had a financial advantage for districts to collaborate, hence your Boces aid. So that's a little bit of history of how it came to fruition. Again, back to our Boces here, we have 3 career and technical educational campuses, one here in Elmira that most of your students attend, known as the Bush campus, one in Coopers Plains, known as the Coopers campus, and one out in Hornell, known as the Wildwood campus. We have several special education programs that are housed within those 3 CTE campuses, but also several special education classrooms that are housed within the component school districts too. And again, that's that collaboration. And that's what's essential for Boces to function. We have a great partnership with Horseheads. Tom is such a great advocate for Horseheads, but also for the region. And so we really rely on those strong partnerships with our component school districts. I will also say, and I tell this to all the boards as I've been presenting, you are 20 out of 21 tonight. So one item that I always share is that Boces would not exist if it wasn't for the component school districts. There would not be a function for us to be able to provide and to support. We technically don't own anything. Everything that we own and operate is the districts. So it's really important that districts know that because that's your investment. Those are your resources. Those are your opportunities that we're creating for the most precious resource that we share, and that's our kids. We also have a P-TECH program, and I know that you're well aware of that. That's also housed within the Corning area. GST Boces has over 900 employees that support the organization, component schools, and regional students. You can scroll, that would be great. So a little bit about Horseheads. So this is just a little bit of a snapshot of your current participation summary. And I always tell everybody it's kind of set in jello because that's the way it's meant to be. It's meant to fluctuate depending on what your needs are. And that's the other piece about BOCES. It is intended to be flexible. So if there isn't a service that we're currently providing, or if your service needs change, our job is to be that vehicle that can create what services you need at that moment in time. So our job is to, not only perform and supply great customer service in what we do, but to be flexible and redefine flexibility when needed. So you can see that currently we have about 200 of your kiddos attending CTE programs and about 14 at the P-TECH site, and about 68 students that are receiving that specialized programming that I spoke about. The other essential component really of BOCES beyond the student experience and opportunity is functions that we provide with collaboration that help service those functional aspects of district operations. And that's those other things that are listed up there, such as instructional support, library media, related services, computer services, labor relations, safety risk management, all of those things that, again, from a sustainability standpoint, it would not make sense to have that replicated 21 times over, but collaboratively, we can provide a higher level of service that's much more affordable for the districts. And now I learned a long time ago that our students can say things much better than we can, so I'm going to turn it over to one of your own to share her own experience.
Hi, I'm Levy Limit from senior at Boces High School, and I'm currently in the dental assisting program at HCSD Boces. I came to Boces because my sister also did the dental assisting program, and I realized how much she loved it, and she still has a job today in the office. And she graduated in 2013 and is still. And so I decided to do it, and throughout my experience, I realized that I really like how the students come from all areas, so you can meet new people and meet new friends. And I've also created a really good relationship with my teachers one-on-one with them, and they teach us new skills that I have to perform in office one day, and also skills that I need in just regular life. Some skills I've learned is we've done taking x-rays, radiographs, taking impressions, and doing crowns and bridges. To be a good employee, I've learned that you have to be personable in order to work with people, empathetic to understand people, and reliable to support people. My future plans are to continue my dental career and going to school to be a dental hygienist. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for her? I know, it'll be, I promise.
What year does the program start, as a freshman or sophomore, or what year is it?
I started my junior year.
Junior, thank you.
And most career and technical educational studies start as a junior year, unless you're going into divisions, and that would start as a senior. Yeah, good question. Well, behind you.
How has it been spending part of your day there versus part of your day here? Is that doable?
I like it a lot more. I think it makes the day go by faster, and it's something that I enjoy learning about. So it's not mostly school, but you're also getting those credits, which I like. And you're just doing what you like and what you're interested in. So it's refreshing to go there.
Oh, this was both of you, just going off the credit question, how does a curriculum as such as going for 2 years BOCES fit with high school as far as block scheduling and stuff like that? As far as
We can or you can. Go ahead. I can speak as my former principal hat from what I know and district superintendent. So what I can say is obviously a little bit different with each district because we all have our uniqueness of our master schedules, but they really make sure that kids have the courses that they need between 9th and 10th grade year, and that the schedule is also created to support kids that are going to go on into a career in tech field. So those essential courses that a junior would need, their junior year would be offered in the morning so that they could attend their CTE programming in the afternoon. And typically it's about 4 credits that they receive for their participation in their CTE program each year. So it'd be 8 credits across 2 years. How do you do as a former principal? Okay.
We do have a nice nuance as a district because our morning and afternoon programs we start on either end, so we have these bookend courses So we're allowed to offer additional credits to students and opportunities because we start before the BOCES more AM start, and when the PM comes back, we have another 40-minute block where we can get another bookend all year, so there's additional credit time for students. So not only are they getting the credits and co-seating some of their coursework up at CTE, and getting credit for their course itself at CTE. By co-seating, they might get an English 12 elective at the same time, or course, as well as the CTE for the programs. And some even have PE, there's co-seating, we'll call it. So, and then we have the bookends on top of that. So the student can still get easily 3 courses in a given day, correct? On top of the CTE.
And wouldn't have to take a reduction in the type of diploma they get.
Most of our students will clearly graduate with excess credits beyond New York State, the way we run our system. And especially seeing that we don't have any study halls in our system either.
And we should add too that a lot of the career and technical education courses, and specifically New Vision, there's a lot of embedded college credit as well, so not just high school credit. They're challenged, which is what they should be, right, as they're attending. I'm always telling students, and again, as a former CTE grad, I'm pretty proud of the experience that I had, and it obviously has served me well. It's really like going to junior college at public high school price. So it's an amazing opportunity that we really hope to maximize for kids. Questions for?
I have a question. So in order to participate in the CTE program, do the students need to know, like in their freshman year, that they want to participate in junior year, what if they decide in summer?
In each school, so I will let him answer
I
that.
do believe we start in our 8th grade with visitation opportunities to the CTE program and understanding what the offerings might be. And again, I think in 10th grade, there's an opportunity to see what is being offered up there, and the continued conversations a counselor might have with students as they prepare for their, their 4-year plan, bringing in their 9th grade year. So we have an early exposure in our middle school as far as what kind of opportunities there are. And then we have a reboot in 10th grade as we go into the official scheduling for their junior year, which is when most students will participate in most CTE programs.
Anything else for your student? Great job.
That's very good.
And this slide just captures, mission and vision work, and I think the blue box says it well. It's innovation in creating student success through cooperative experiences and services. That's really what it is all about. So if you could scroll again, please. These are just a couple pictures of kids doing great things, your kids doing great things from other CTE programs. You can see a little bit with conservation, heavy equipment, digital media arts. And if you could go to the next one, there's just a couple more. In fact, there's a dental assistant slide in there. It's always a little, when I go in there, I gotta remember that those mannequins are in there. They're supposed to be in there and they don't catch me off guard. But then our culinary arts students and our building trades. And, some other point of, that's really important for people to understand, it's not just about the skill set that they're learning. For some kids, this is the way they're going to be successful through high school, and we recognize that. And for some of these kids, it's not necessarily a career that they're going to continue to explore after graduation, but it's something that they want to learn while we're in high school. And what a great opportunity to be able to do that. And when I'm speaking with kids as I'm touring classrooms, they're very smart about the choices that they've made, because some kids that have spoken with me that are in auto body or tech and building trades, it's about, I can do my own home repairs now. I don't necessarily want to be a carpenter, but I know once I own my own home, I can do those repairs or not being taken advantage of when you're hiring a contractor. And what I would also say too is that it's about the skills, it's about the experience, but this is also about creating really great community members, right? Because we need to make sure that these kids can thrive, and we want them to be contributing members of our communities. So for example, the building trade students on all 3 of our campuses are currently involved in building homes, modular homes, that will be repurposed, to families in need. In fact, the Bush campus and the Cooper's campus are partnered with Habitat for Humanity for those homes to be repurposed later this spring. And then our kids out of the Wildwood campus are partnered with the Village of Cornell as part of the home replacement for those homes that were lost in the fire several years ago. So again, it's not just the skills, it's just about becoming great community members as well. So just a couple other items that I wanted to touch upon, and then I'd be glad to take any questions. The solar project and the proposed capital project. So the solar project was well underway when I arrived at Boces in August. And basically what has transpired is they went out for a request for proposal to receive a contract with a company that would be able to provide a solar project here at the Bush campus in Elmira. And so Renovus was awarded that contract. And since August, we have had our career and tech ed students heavily involved in prepping the land and prepping the site. So that's everything from, taking down trees to draining the ponds to prepping the soil to be able to hold the build. And we hope that the build will start somewhere between May and June, depending on material acquisition. What's also great is that our kids, because we were able to negotiate that into the contract, is that there's going to be several kiosks that are going to be displayed in several of our career and tech ed classrooms that would make sense so that they can continue to be involved in the monitoring and the upkeep of the solar project. And when you think about the skill set that's associated with that and what these kids will be able to include in a resume, when they're going out to apply either for college or for a career right out of high school, that's a pretty unique experience that a lot of those kids are going to be able to include. When the solar project went out to bid, so to speak, they did canvass all three of the sites. So the Bush campus, Cooper's campus, and Wildwood campus. And as you all know, in order for an EPC project to be approved, there's a threshold that needs to be met for financial gain. And so currently the Bush campus is the only one that met that threshold. So that's why it's going to be used as the site for that construction. The next item is the proposed capital project. The vote is going to transpire this coming Tuesday, March 22nd from noon to 8. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that process and how we got to this point. So again, when I arrived in August, the superintendents were very clear to articulate that in order for the capital project to move forward, there was two things that we needed to accomplish. It's a $20 million proposed capital project. But again, in order for the conversation and the work and the potential project to move forward, there was two items that we must accomplish. One was that this project could not create any new financial obligation for the districts. So that in itself is a task, right? And then the second item was that the capital project, the debt associated with that could not be shared by the districts, meaning it would not increase your own debt limit at your local level. Because as you can imagine, that then narrows the ability for you to be able to borrow because it adds to your debt limit. It also could be confusing for your taxpayers. So that in itself was also a pretty significant task to accomplish, but I am pleased to share with you that we were able to do both of those things. It makes it a little unique, but we were able to accomplish that. So as far as paying for the $20 million project, we are going to be reallocating our local capital funds as a Boces, and then also reallocating existing funds associated with an old EPC project. So those funds will be reallocated to pay for this $20 million project. In a typical Boces capital project, and I should note too, this is the first capital project that this Boces has ever done, which was surprising to me to learn that as well. But in a typical capital Boces project, the districts do own the debt. Because if you remember what I said, we don't own anything, you own it. So that's why you would own the debt as well. So what would happen in a typical Boces capital project vote, in this situation, there's 21 components, so there'd be 21 votes. The superintendents and their boards would cast a ballot, and that would be it. Majority rule, the vote would be considered favorable, and it would move forward. But because Boces is going to hold the debt, we have to go through a different process, and that's the DASNY process. And the DASNY process will allow us to hold the debt and do everything that I've already said will be part of this capital project. But the thing that's unique about that, because the districts are not holding the debt, the Boces is that the voting is completely different. So anyone who lives within the 21 component school districts has the opportunity to come and vote. So that 2,000 square mile radius, anyone that resides and is a qualified voter, just like would be a qualified voter for your budget vote, has the opportunity to come and vote. So the voting will take place on Tuesday from noon to 8 at each of our 3 CTE campuses so that we could make that accessible for anyone and everyone that does live in the 21 and would like to take the opportunity to come and vote. We also had to send absentee ballots for anyone who's registered as an absentee voter in 5 counties. As a district superintendent, I'll share with you, I used to get maybe this many. We've gotten like this many. this vote so far. So people are taking the opportunity, which is good. That's what we want them to do. But know that again, you will have the ability to come out and vote on Tuesday from noon to 8 at any of those 3 CTE campuses. The work that's involved in that $20 million, it's really two different pieces of work. It's underground utility work on all 3 of our campuses. All 3 of our campuses, the utility work currently is original, and you can imagine the troublesome associated with that. So a lot of replacement is needed, and that's the stuff that no one really likes to talk about and spend money on, but it's the infrastructure that must be in place so that we can have good quality classrooms and programs. The other item that's associated with the capital project is the construction of a gym multi-purpose room at the Coopers and the Wildwood campus. Currently, there is no facility at those sites. The site here at the Bush campus has a gym multi-purpose room, and the other sites do not, never have had one. So that's really about making sure that we have equality across the organization, so all kids have equal access. And that's it. Be glad to answer any questions or provide any additional information. I could go on and on about BOCES. I mean, I'd be glad to, but I want to make it worth your while. Is there anything I can answer for you? Yes. Mr. Johnson said he was going to be kind.
I gotta be careful.
Yeah.
What direct benefits does the solar project bring to the BOCES?
That's a good question. And so remember that threshold that I said you had to prove in order for it to be approved, because state ed and a lot of other agencies have a lot of skin in the game, so to speak. And so it has been the analysis, the data that has been collected has demonstrated that it will produce enough energy to support all 3 of our campuses and have energy to sell back to the grid. So that's positive for sure, let alone the learning experience that our kids are going to benefit from. That's a good one. Good question. Thank you. Did you have a hand, sir?
That was my question.
Oh, okay, great. Well, if you think of anything else, you can certainly share the questions with Tom, and he can reach out to me, and I will share those answers and get them back to you. But thank you again for sharing your meeting with me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all the support and being such a great partner with BOCES.
We know you have a lot to do tonight.
A little bit,
Also.
yeah, I would guess.
Anything finer? Because Kelly is all over the place. Not only is she the district superintendent for GSD BOCES, she is also filling in right now currently as the interim for Spencer Bennett. So she has to end there. So God bless you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we will be sending out notification to all of our community that signs up for our email communications, which is sort of like our weekly update or bi-weekly update, and it will have this information in. One of the things that I just want to make everybody aware, because if by chance you work out in Hornell and you get out of work, you can vote in Hornell. BOCES has set it up very succinctly. You register, your name goes in, and once you vote, you cannot go to another site, but they have at each site the ability to check alphabetically who has been voting. So that allows everybody great flexibility. As boards, as Kelly knows, we cannot take a position in regards to it one way or another. All we can do is encourage people to vote. So on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022, if you're 18 years of age and older, a resident, a renter, has a valid New York State driver's license and can prove that you're within the GSD BOCES area, you can go at any one of these locations and cast your vote on that day. And we always encourage people to participate. So ladies and gentlemen, this will also be going out. This is their flyer that will be going out to all residents tomorrow and go on our website. So just wrap that up. As we shift now, we will be shifting to our budget presentation. And as they're getting that up, one of the things about what Kelly said about DASNY, just so you know, I know alphabet soup, it's Dorm Authority of the State of New York. That's what DASNY is. And what happens is there's 3 processes she was defining them. If we incur the debt, it also goes on our tax cap calculation. By going through the dorm authority, every school district is a little protected from having the building construction impact the possibility of the educational budget being impacted in each of the districts. So I commend Kelly, I commend the board, our representative there, Ms. Pam Strollo. Kelly came on and is putting this together in a very short time and has worked very steadfastly with the superintendents to try to do the best for all districts, all communities, and all schools. And we'll see how it goes on March 22nd. So tonight, normally we'd be introducing Miss Katie Bizzetti, but unfortunately Katie is ill. So she asked me to step in, and I think the board president said maybe Tony could do it, so that we could be a little shorter.
That's all I said.
So we'll start our budget overview, and I am going to see if I can speed up a little, because our budget is in development at this point, and if you go up, a lot of these slides right off the bat you've seen, but if we go to the next slide, we've already seen the projected state aid. We're narrowing in on specificity, and Katie and her group were able to find that we are going to receive a little bit more transportation aid, which raises our total of projected state aid by about $393,000. So that's a good thing in our bottom line, because no matter what, we have to close the gap. So you have the governor's proposal, which by April 1st, which they project that there will be a budget, we will not probably see much changes in these numbers, where traditionally we'd see these numbers be the base and then they would go up. As far as the tax levy limit, we've been talking about that in the past too. Nothing has changed. We are at a 2% calculation rate according to the maximum allowable tax levy limit that was put into place through previous governors. The allowable rate of inflation is at 2%, even though that was calculated based off last year's numbers, and we have seen rates of inflation on a monthly tick up to 6-7%, which is going to be out year problematic for all school districts. But this is the maximum we are allowed to be able to work with a simple majority vote. If the board chooses to go above the calculation, remember it's 2% and it's calculation, which leads to our tax cap. Our funds that we've gone over, nothing has really changed here in the calculations over the past two budget meetings. So as we know, the district's maximum allowable property tax levy change is $1.2 million, which equates to a levy of about 2.97%, if that's what the board chooses to go out with. Anything less than that number, we can go out with that requires 50% plus one voter approval. Anything more than that, even by 1 cent, requires 60% supermajority. So that's a decision that we will have to have a little discussion about at the end of this presentation to narrow in so that we can finalize the budget by March 31st. With that conversation to be ready for April 20th or April 21st approval. So that's the numbers right now, and that is the number, which is 2%. Even though you see 2.9%, that is the legal 2% number that everybody says. So we have not gone over the 2%, and we have lived up to the state's requirement. At least that's our projection. As we go, we have a summary of budget revenues, and this is where we've put together our tax items, our other revenues. We've tried to finalize, and we update every 2 weeks as we've implemented an increase in the state aid. So we have right now a projected budget of $84,791,036, which is a potential change of $1,651,412. So that's where we're at right now, and this produces budget expenditures of around 90 million is the projected budget, which has a change of about $5.2 million plus, which is about a 6.1% budget over budget change at this point. But if we did everything and we were able to fund it, it would end up leaving us right now with a preliminary gap of $6.1 million. Now, if the board remembers from the start of this, this is already down almost $300,000 to $400,000. Now, we only have a couple weeks left in this month and a couple for the next month. How do we get that to zero? Well, you have all the gap closing options. The final potential tax levy is not built into this. The use of our reserves, any potential budget reductions, any fine tuning of state aid, any use of fund balance, and any potential cleanup of the budget. That starts to happen over the next 2 weeks especially, and then really clarifies once we know where the tax levy option is, and then we start estimating what the potential tax rate would mean to the district. So that's where we're at right now. Now we have two presentations tonight, and I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Technology, Mr. William Giancoli, and also our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Tony Gill. See, I'm right along, guys. Let's go.
That's why we have to remember.
I did pretty good, didn't I? Pressure.
Good evening. So I'm here to talk about the technology department overview and the budget. So as you can see in this first slide, we kept a lot of things kind of on the flat line with the equipment, which pertains to a lot of our laptops, our network devices, anything that kind of goes within the instructional learning. Also, as far as administrators or things like laptops, desktops, iPads, and what have you. Supplies, the supplies range everything from cordage as far as HDMI cords. I can tell you we spent a lot on HDMI cords, lamps for projectors, other devices and like little what's known as dongles to be able to help convert some of the signals back and forth between devices as well. The contractual services and the technology, this budget usually covers our Verizon bills as well as any outside vendors that we have come into the district to help with any repairs or things that we might need as the year goes on. I cannot stress the importance of, as you can see, a little bit of an increase, but this summer help is very important. Summer is our busy time of year. That's when we're getting everything ready. So to have extra help on hand, usually these tend to be either a senior or a college student that like comes in and really just kind of, we give them a lot of grunt work, but we try to teach them a lot as well. But they're always very, very helpful and very appreciative to have that summer help here. And then the Boces, which we'll talk more about this slide, makes up a lot of our budget as far as a lot of the services that we're going to need there. So talking about Boces, this is kind of the breakdown of some of the services that we have. The managed IT service really refers to the technicians that we have here in district. Currently, we have 4. On April 4th, we're going to have a 5th technician starting. This is great to help manage the amount of devices that we do have. Right now, our ratio is somewhere around 1,000 devices to 1 technician. So we are kind of working tirelessly to try to make these things work. Our team is very good at what they do, and they just try to, they're here pretty much every day. So now adding that 5th that we, with turnover, has kind of been here and there where we can find actually skilled technicians. That's been kind of there throughout the year, but now we're going to have a 5th coming in, and that's going to make life a lot easier. The student management system is our school tool that we use, and then the financial management system is referring to the WinCap and our billing and things of that nature. We do have a VoIP system, and then the equipment and software at the 341,000 there refers to a lot of the educational technologies and hardwares that we purchase, anywhere from laptops and Promethean panels and things of that nature. The district specific services is a range of services. One of the big ones being our copier fleet tends to be about half of that with all our copiers and the copying that we do. And also refers to our QWare, which is where we have our software that does the technical, any facilities or maintenance requests can go through there. It also covers our frontline IAP services and also a lot of our switches and servers that Boces uses to help keep our network up and running. Are there any questions at this point?
I have a question which made me think of it when you mentioned the ratio of devices to technicians. And then I know there's an equipment line or hardware line on the budget, like the previous slide. And it's a bit of an extension from the specific budget, but I think we've talked, I know we're not at the point yet of sort of a, 1 device per student kind of ratio, or those high schools where like every student gets assigned a computer, but we've said, I think that's the goal we're trying to work toward. Can you comment on with the money in the equipment budget now and what we have, are we still headed in that direction or where we fall kind of on that road now?
Yes, that direction is there and it's becoming clearer every day with where we want to go. I'm gonna have Tony speak to that a little bit more.
So, you recall in the previous board meeting, we talked about a coaster that was redone. I can go next slide, please. For that managed IT service, our 605 coaster was redesigned to include our FTE and all the behind the scenes things that happens when we onboard a laptop. So not only do you have the initial cost hardware of laptop, but you have this behind the scenes, getting it connected to the server, getting it, it's displayed there, the cloud space, there's a background there, and then there's the IT support in-house. So there's been a combination. Kate and I have been in a lot of conversations with Boces trying to understand the new way they are incorporating this particular coaster. It does have to give us greater service. I'm gonna get around to your question, by the way.
Yeah.
But this is.
He's a farmer,
Wait, so I got extra time. So the IT service is expanded now to include many of these aspects of one separate coaster. So that's why it's gonna look different up there than previous years. And part of that, they had to devise a line where they said, how many devices? And to be clear about devices, they are referring to laptops. It doesn't count the service and the work our IT department does, and anything from our phones to our, well, everything is technology now, right? Projectors, medians, but it's by the device of the laptop. And they started with this ratio based on how many we currently have in house. We're not purchasing an FTE anymore, we're not a full-time person. It's no longer, we have 5 technicians currently working land techs to put this in action. As we grow our number of laptops, we have to be conscious of a couple things. We are on track to have a high school, with any luck, if it goes 1-to-1 as early as next year. So we feel good that we're moving in that direction. So the high school at a 1-to-1. Now keep in mind, that doesn't mean just having 1,200 devices handed out. You need a 10% contingency, right? For forgetful, needs to be charged, broken, being serviced. So we have to work out systems. And I know Tiffany and Bill and the teams have been working about what are all those ancillaries that come into play when we deal with that. The next goal was to address to our 7th and 8th graders. Understanding that you just don't hand those kids, any kid, a laptop. There's certain professional learning that goes in on expectations of the family and the kid, as well as with the educational side and the teachers and their usage. But we're well on our way after this pandemic, the paperless and some of the LMS usage that we're bringing on. And then our ultimate goal is to not move down to the 5-6 in the next several years. Within 3 years to 4 years, to be down to the 5-6 level. At which time we will have a good amount of computers to be think about what we're going to do in our pre-K through 4 buildings. Do we, what's 1-to-1 look like there? What kind of computers 4 years from now are going to be available? Technology changes very quickly. What's appropriate to that age group? Are we looking at iPads or touchscreen devices, which have increased costs? So there's some conversations to be had as we move towards that. We do know that the 912 is a likely next move. You'll recall that we have different funding outside of these two in our grants from the government, our CIRSA and ARP. Part of those, and we might recall, we asked the public, what should we spend money on for our particular ARP? And a large portion of that, they said social, emotional, and technology. And so we are in fact doing that. The cautious thing is we have 3 years to spend that money, but that puts us on an increased recycle, replaceable, now we're replacing a large influx of devices. We purchased 750 devices this year alone, which means that, 6 years from now, that's a huge increase in our cost that perhaps these won't cover, nor will a grant because it no longer exists. So we have to build up for sustainability, being cautious of not taking too many computers on in any one given year to set us up for a recurring cost that's over $1 million in new laptops. So we're going to step it in with any luck, have that high school model in place for the beginning of next school year, at which time we'll look to move to the a cycle down to 7, 8, and 5, 6 within the next 3 years. And all the time being conscious of what we need to know, how we manage those systems. And there's in our current system when we loan out devices, we do get devices that come back damaged. So we're going to get some warranty options, which other districts do. But I think it's a good model. I think it's the way we've talked about going. I think the grant funding allows us for that. Katie and I have been working with Tom about how do we get these equipment lines that you see in our BOCES, as well as the equipment lines that are operational, ready for that replacement cycle down the road. A lot more than you want to know.
Well, no, I appreciate the, thoughtful and detailed answer, because it's a complex question. I think it just showed there's a lot of different factors that have, it's not as just easy as going down to Best Buy and buying out all the laptops that they have, so, but what you said makes a lot of sense, the idea of how it's spaced in over time at, the levels at which it makes the most sense, and I think saw during the pandemic, the district did a fantastic job in making technology available to as many people as needed it, and I just think it's a good goal to work for, the idea, given how we all are so saturated with technology in our jobs and in schools, the idea of students having that available to them if maybe they don't have the means to have their own computer at home, for example, is a good thing. So
yes, and you talk about some other issues that we were able to see firsthand through the pandemic, which is you could get a computer, but what is the connectivity in the home? And I know that's what work is being done at the state level to address those. We do have a numerous amount of hotspots, but if there's any data service, those are no good. Broadband is getting better in the area. We'll see what 3 years brings, but there's that consideration. Just because you give the student a laptop, you got to consider how are they getting the information there, still using it at home without being able to sync it and getting back in district to make sure that those documents aren't lost and now resynced, and so their network connectivity wasn't an issue. So some learning there. Why I started off with the land tech is important. Bill and his team were able to make a lot of that, those device move outs possible. However, as we increase the number of devices, we're going to need more support. As far as especially on number of devices, we say 1,000 to 1 ratio. We're still working up the nuances to understand what that means from the BOCES service, because those land techs are from the BOCES, and it's supposed to be 1,000 to 1 ratio. So in the next 2 years, when we're purchasing possibly over 1,200 computers, 600 each year, we would expect that BOCES would provide the necessary land techs to service that, given the closer cost. So that is our ongoing conversation to ensure this new movement of this BOCES service, this managed IT, is not going to set us up that we're going to be stuck with 5 land techs and a boatload more of computers that now we have a tough time servicing. So like I said, Katie and I were working through that with BOCES to ensure we're not left for servicing. We're not giving out devices that can't be used adequately.
Bill, you made a comment, the land tech to 1,000 devices. Are all devices the same, so per se, you're taking on all these 1,500? Does that mean, is that when you do a ratio like that, every device that kind of washes itself as an equal service necessary? Is that going to be the case with just moving up vastly increasing the amount of districts taking it?
Well, the way the numbers are worked with BOCES is that they count the network devices. So this is anything from any laptop, Chromebook, tablet, things that would actually connect desktop CPU. So there is a little bit of a variance there. However, when we look at purchasing, we try to purchase everything alike so that it does, because even models between, let's say, Dell, if you get 2 Dell machines, might have different software packages that are needed for the images. So that's why we try to stay consistent with the devices. So we purposely try to keep them the same, but between iPads, CPUs and everything, there is a variance to that we try to, we adapt to.
I'd be remiss if we not to mention that Bill and I were just talking about what's going to happen the next couple of years with the new upgrade to the Windows system. And with that expectation and how that's going to change a lot of our integration across multiple software platforms. So being ahead of that and cognizant of that at the same time of onboarding additional student devices as well.
Next. Okay.
Take that. And we do, I'll welcome Mike want to talk about our facility service overview.
Good evening. Not too All
right, for review of our facility services, salaries, we'll break that down a little more on the next slide. Go from 2,458,870 to 2,603,129. We'll break that down a little bit on the next page. That's pretty much covering contractual and staff that we've allotted over the last year in the cleaning positions. Equipment and vehicles, for last year's budget, 2021-22 was 303,553. You'll see a slight increase in there to 324, 353, and you'll see how, I pretty much stuck on with the same platform would be flat. We moved some things around. I'll touch base on that a little bit, but I moved that from some contractual services and some supplies, and I'll explain that when we go a little bit, but there'll be need for vehicles. Vehicles have been kind of tough. We had one last year, even at the very end of the year, they said you can't get it. So worked real hard with Jason in the bus garage looking at equipment. There's a couple trucks and a tractor in there. And then the normal replacement of vacuums, floor scrubbers and stuff like that we have on a rotating basis for equipment. But I'll explain that increase a little further on. Utilities, $580,000 in there, and I've carried that same number and spent a lot of time on this particular one. We recently, Boces is where we purchase our utilities from. There's hundreds of members in this purchasing group. We did just sign a contract for 3 years. And I sent it out to their legal and even recently looked, and currently they're telling us that in that current contract, they expect that price to hold. Katie and I did talk on this because of clauses, the history, we're in uncertain times after we've gone through there. We'll always keep the lights on, we'll go there, we're basing it off that particular contract number, working real hard with Dan. The Warren, there's a little buffer in there, and I think we've seen this number reduce a little bit, a lot of the energy efficiencies we put in. After Center Street's done this year, all steam boilers are gone throughout the district. All the LED lighting we put in there. So we're watching it, we'll see there, but we're currently under contract based on OC and the security debt numbers. Something does change on that. So that's why the utilities you see staying there. It's very fortunate to give a number. We really do know our trending off data, we know our consumption, we know what it costs. So we really feel the numbers stay exactly what they're telling us at this time. We'll be fine there. Contracted services, those will be all of our contracts that we have. It could be HVAC, it could be our cameras, pests, trash, anything that we're paying labor or service goes out from there. In order on the equipment line that you're seeing, I did lower that a little bit. There's certain things after some trending we can see. I'm happy to tell you that whole dollar amount there is less than I'm spending on roofs. All right, so it wasn't easy. We worked up through the contractual or through the capital projects on roofs. We're getting there. We're getting more this summer. But those were the areas as I tried to look through the budget to look for them. The custodial maintenance supplies, 304, 250. You see that's down to 289, 250. That's lumped in there. There's a lot of supplies that come out of there. We talked, cleaning supplies are up. We found some things on there, but we've also found other areas we're not using as much, so we reconcile that. We did see a decent on cleaning supplies go up, but it could be several other things from the project that we tend to be on supplies. Cut light bulbs in half. We've done that over the last couple of years, period. We put in that many LED fixtures in the corridors, in these new classrooms. So now we are reaping some of those benefits. Just the disposal of the bulbs, after we look at that number, went way down. After we're done, we have to pay to get rid of them. So those are just a fraction of little things that we look through with that investments on supplies. We're able to get that number to feel comfortable representing it to 289, 250. Boces, so those are Boces services. The big one on that one, I think that goes to the OCM Boces, and that's for their energy that we were just talking about. They put out that bid. All those school districts and municipalities throughout the year for the total increase for the facility service overview from 4,104,089 to 4,249,363, an increase of 3.8%. high school. Any question, huh? Breakdown on that, we talked on the salaries on that currently. In the office and supervisors and the director, myself, that's 7 full-time. That's based on just contractual going from the 473.41, 492.218. Custodians currently budgeted into there is the 43, that increases where we moved up over the last couple of years, getting back, as I remind, 10 years ago, these numbers are still not right where they were, but we're very grateful as we restructured. We've added the high school, middle school, 10 to 6 position, very, very helpful. Those are the busy times, getting through lunch and stuff, putting a person in the building, definitely helped during COVID. Gonna help us maintain the investment. We just put out millions of dollars we're doing now to keep it up. So we talked about that in the past, and we're starting to reap the benefits. That and the maintenance of 12. That particular one jumped up a little bit more in the maintenance. That was an increase in one position last year that we split between 2 departments. From 360, 731 to 427, 540. Overtime numbers, we did a minor increase on that based off that. That's our summer help. As Bill said, what a value to the district when we get that summer help in. Not only teaches lifelong lessons that they can carry on, it's very vital to what we do, especially these most recent summers. And the last one to stay the same was the stipends, and that's be certain areas of CDL license, asbestos license, herbicide, pesticide, and stipends that they have to carry special certification for, that we carry that under the same. There you have it, guys. There's my facilities budget. Any questions and concerns? More, I'll save you one question at the end of the night. I'll get you caught up on that solar energy and different stuff. It's higher on the top of the design. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And that is true, with all the construction and building that we're doing, solar are options that we've looked at in the past, but right now we're doing construction, and I know Mike is looking at any way that we can look at and work with NYSER or some of the options out there. But the one thing we don't want to do is put solar on our roofs. We're investing in our roofs finally, we don't need to puncture holes at this point, right? We like having some dry classrooms for a change, so. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the budget presentation up to this point. We do have another meeting on March 31st, but one of the questions that I have for the board is we have had a long track record of having tax levies that are going up, but our tax rate being lower than our levies. That's a good history to have, just because of the fact the value of the district tends to be going up. I just went to an economic forum. There's being a investment just in the Horseheads Holding Point by Ohio Logistics, which is going to be over the next 5 years about $130 to $140 million investment into the infrastructure here, bringing in other people and companies into that because they've had a track record. They work very closely with Corning and other major industries, and they wouldn't be making this investment unless they can really utilizing the resources that they have with I-86, the train availability, which gets them to the oceans, as well as the air that they have here, as well as Elmira Corning Regional Airport. So those are some positive things that we have to look forward to, but the reason why I say that is because we want that growth to continue. We want the value of the district to go up, which is second only to Corning City's, Corning Painted Post City School District, because they have a Fortune 500 company within theirs. Horseheads is only $200 million roughly behind in value of that area, and we're more of a residential suburban area, which is really in rural New York. So that's a positive thing, but it means that as we look at the budget and the state aid, you've heard that across the state, across this region, Two of our competing schools in the area, one received roughly $9 million in state aid, one received roughly 1.4, and we received 700,000. That's because they view us as an affluent district and we do not need as much resource help as the other districts in the county. That always puts a little financial pressure upon us, and you can see that from the budget. That's why that maximum allowable tax levy or challenging is always a question. We do not feel as an administration that we would need to look at challenging at this point, but it's using the maximum allowable calculation of the tax levy of 2.97%, which in the history, once we get the evaluations as we get closer to the budget, that has traditionally gone down and been a rate that has been either close to zero or a negative decrease on the overall true value tax rate. So really what happens is we need to have either the discussion tonight or by the next meeting, which is fine with us either way, because Katie will be here, to zero in on what number we're going to start filling in some of the options that you saw here for a final potential tax levy decision. We have primarily every year been at the maximum amount of the 2% calculation. Our community does seem to understand that, but we've been trying to educate them about the tax rate, and we've heard that from their responses with supermajority votes that they understand that as well. We are the second lowest residential tax rate in the southern tier. The only one that's ahead of us is Watkins Glen. They're at 16 something, we're at 1738. There's the potential we may drop lower even with this tax rate. We still have to plan it out and look at the overall value. So that's something I want to be aware of, because that discussion helps finalize where we're going to be with fund balance budget reductions or use of reserves to try to make sure we move Horseheads forward, try to be financially responsible to our community, and yet move us in a position educationally that strengthens each year, especially going through the pandemic. So again, we'll open it up for any questions that you have or your thoughts on what I just asked. Mr. Johnson.
It would be extremely difficult, I think, as a school board with inflation and everything going up, the rates that are going up, to go any higher than the tax levy limit that we have in front of us. We do have some fund balance and reserve funds that are at our disposal. My feeling is that we should use those tools before we talk seriously about challenging the tax levy.
Yeah, and just so that as a response, as an administration, as your superintendent, I am not recommending that the board goes above that tax levy limit whatsoever at this point. There will come a time for every school sooner or later. Now is not the time for us at all.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would agree 100%. Keep it right at the limit and go on.
Mr. Christmas?
I third that view, I guess. It's already been seconded, but I do think, for purposes or the reasons that you talked about in other budget meetings, utilizing what is available to us under that cap, the full 2.97, I think is important. And so, I would not want to go lower than that, but I don't think we should go above it. And I think, as you said, hopefully, then in the end, the actual economic impact is less because of the way the property values go. But I do think it's important to give the district the benefit of what is available to us under the law to try to, combat the increase in our own budget. So I would support the 2.97.
I have no problem forthing the 2.97%. The one thing that I do want to be, my opinion as record for, Nate Daigle at the last village board meeting, mentioned pretty similar to you as far as their water rates are some of the lowest in the region. My response to them was the same as when I ran for school board, that my grandmother at 103 years of age, who was by herself in the village and here in the school district, doesn't care that they're the second lowest rates. And I'll put it nicer than my grandmother would to you, Dr. Douglas, but one thing is I understand as far as using it as a comparative point for your student, knowing that any increase to tax means a better, and I'm not saying you don't, I'm definitely not saying you don't, but to make sure that we're raising something, paying more taxes based on what we need and not relative positioning to other school districts.
Yeah.
That's
And unfortunately, we do have to have relative position to other school districts. Because this school district, I know this board and this community should be proud of the fact that we do what a lot of other school districts do. I believe we do it better and we do it for a less expense to our tax base than virtually anybody in the southern tier. And that's something over many years that we've shown either through data sources where we spend about $8,000 less than most districts similar and get better results. And I think you remember that, Brian, we would show that. We're switching over to Forecast 5 so we can get some of that more updated information as well. But those metrics mean something, and I do agree. People don't care, it depends on how it's their pocketbook. That's why we're proud, and I'm proud, over 7 years. Came in at 1830, 1804, and we're at 1738. So to do 2 projects, to lower tax rates, to raise tax levy, but lower rates, that's something I'm proud of, but I know the board is, and I know the community, I believe, has paid attention. So thank you. Mr. Conklin?
Just so when I speak to people, what do we define southern tier as? Or if I'm going out to promote this idea, does it go to Binghamton? Does it go to Jamestown? Where?
Our southern tier is the 21 districts that we compare to.
Okay.
Watkins Glen right now is the lowest at $16 and so.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll bring that slide at the last where we will show our rate compared to basically our county as well as our other main competitor, which is Corning Bay and Trust.
There you go.
Well, I have sort of a general consensus of a direction. I'm sure Katie's watching at home and hopefully she's getting some rest. But I already know, if I know Katie, she's already working on the numbers to clean it up for the next one. So at that point, our next one is March 31st, and that will be focusing on our instructional and our benefits, which wraps up our presentation of the budget, and we start to finalize it. And hopefully we'll have a state budget by that time. If not, we will work between then and spring break to have one ready for April 18th for any final direction with what you've given us and reserves and other balances to try to bring that 6.1 to the best financial package for the district and to move forward to the annual election. So other than that, thank you very much, and we can move forward.
I don't think so.
I can't see one.
Okay, so moving on, item 6, our report from our superintendent.
No, just because we've been meeting, it's nice to see the warm weather, a lot of people out. We do have the St. Patrick's Day parade this Saturday, which was from last week. I was all ready to go. We know that the parade has always had our student representatives. I know there'll be several student and activities out there, although the reschedule has caused some conflicts with people's schedules. I normally walk in and I can't be there as I have to be out of town to take care of one. But I send the whole well wishes from the Horsehead School District that we're happy that things are being as productive as possible, as normal as possible. And I thank all of our staff for their contributions throughout the whole pandemic, even going forward. And I know it is tiring every single day for everybody at home, in school, but there are brighter days ahead. We just have to be vigilant. I thank everybody for trying to be positive and moving forward in that direction. So have a great Saturday, and I know everybody's looking forward to having a great spring season. So on behalf of the board, thank you all. And I'll keep it very short. Construction, we'll do it the next meeting. And curriculum, because we have a super dense conversation.
All right, for report, we did not have our president's report, we did not have an audit committee this month, a policy committee.
We met on March 3rd, and our report's pretty short too, because we tabled 2 items, and we asked for legal review on 3 others, and that's.
Okay, our finance items for action, we have 8.02 through 8.25. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
And any questions or comments on any of these? Lauren?
So on 8:20, this room, my voice.
For the-
Just in case for the people.
On 8:10, this is just a question for me to learn. What does it mean when the contract says, this contract is made in duplicate? It's the opening sentence of the contract. I guess I've never seen that word before.
I am going to turn it over to our representative director of health because I can't find it, but I'm sure she has a legal answer.
Because there are multiple signatures where the parties are signed different versions, they may not have all signed a pen on the same version, but their original pen signature is there. All copies.
Also, I'm gonna abstain, and I guess the educational gods have conspired such that certain contracts can never get in front of the board before they go into effect. And I think as, an organization, we hold people to deadlines. And it just seems if I say yes, then I'm saying, oh, it's okay to miss a deadline here, but we hold everybody else accountable, everybody else in the organization, including students, to deadlines. So, I'm gonna abstain on this one, and in advance, I'll just say, for the same rationale, so I don't have to repeat it, I'll abstain on 10.02.
That's just. That's just.
Yeah, it's just later, I'm just, so I don't have to repeat the whole spiel. To say abstain, and I've already
You
explained.
got that, Jane?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments or committees?
Abstain on 8.07 as opposed to employee.
Any others? Okay, all those in favor of 8.02 through 8.25, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. And then we have the 2 noted abstentions. Item 9 are personnel items for action. We have 9.02 and 9.03. Can I have a motion, please? Any questions, comments? Those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Our miscellaneous items for action, we have 10.02 through 10.05. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Any comments or questions? We already have Lawrence noted at 10.2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And we have 1 abstention. We don't have any board policies for second reading or first reading. I don't think that's ever happened. All the years I've been on the board. Our board.
Sorry, we got our first month off, not summer month off ever, and then we.
That's okay, I'm not. Item 3.01, board member comments.
Just reminding the board for the tours on the 23rd. And we will be reaching out to you tomorrow from Ms. Clark or Monday to set up the March get together one-on-ones with myself and the board of education. Already have Kevin already set. for a Friday fish fry, but I just wanted to talk to each one of you and plus also give my new administrative assistant Monday the opportunity to start calling around and getting to know the process. So hopefully that helps.
Do we have, like a timeline agenda for the 23rd?
That will be coming out, next week.
Okay.
Okay.
It's like all late, so it's already.
Yeah, we'll have you in groups and so that you know where to go right along the schedule.
Okay. I just want to say, we had, a lot of successful outcomes coming out of the winter sports and congratulations to all those athletes. We had some records broken and a lot of, state medals being brought home, so that's really awesome. And then wishing all of our spring teams good luck. And then I know nobody who's in the play is listening right now because they're all performing, but I just want to wish, all of our cast members, a great weekend of performances and just encourage our community to come out and see the play. And then before we meet again, well, I guess not, because we'll be together in 2 weeks. That's spring break. That's not an official board meeting. I just want to wish all the families just a safe and healthy spring break. As we get into this warmer weather and we have some additional. Okay. So I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any absent? Okay, have a wonderful night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our St. Patrick's Day Board of Education meeting of the Horseshoe Central School District. Please everybody be safe and have a good evening.